We play a game of true or false, Auburn football style, on this live edition of the Uptempo podcast.
You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
Good evening, Auburn family. Dustin Smith and Blake Lane back with y'all for another episode of the Uptempo podcast. Gonna do a little true or false tonight, Blake. I'm fired up. How are you, buddy?
I'm fired up, Dustin. Anytime we're talking Auburn football, baby, I'm here. I'm locked in. Let's go.
Yes, man. Let's go. Let's go. Get it here real quick and holler at our members before we get these questions popping off. Our guy Brett was in here early today, man. Hours before the show. He was already ready to go. Says War Damn Fam T-minus 2 hours at the time he was in here for the greatest pod on earth. Love you, Brett. Appreciate the good words. Daniel says Jordan-Hare Stadium at 14 on college football is a crime. We'll save this for the end, and we'll definitely talk about this for sure. Auburn Dad, we see you. We're praying for you. You know, we got a big day for our guy Auburn Dad out there. Throw your prayers up for him. So, and Brett, he does not like the list either. We'll definitely talk about that. Before we do, man, let's get over here and holler at some of these questions that we got from some of y'all. Me and Blake came up with some. We'll do a little true or false. And we'll pop up the first question here. This was from Blake saying, true or false, Auburn wins one of these tough road games, Georgia, Mizzou, or Bama. Blake, I'll let you go first, man.
Look, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about it today, and while I was at work, I was like, man, you know, those are three tough ones. And especially with Georgia and Mizzou, the way they hit the schedule, right? They're right in the middle of that road stretch, and I think those two might be a little difficult for the Auburn Tigers, just because like Georgia, you know, you got Oklahoma before Georgia, and then bang, it's Mizzou, Kentucky. That's just a really tough stretch. Now,
Yeah,
you got Bama at the end, right? Iron Bowl, you know, we don't know. It's always a crazy game. I know they haven't been particularly close in Bryant-Denny lately, but I feel like Auburn's roster is going to be better than it was last year, and I think Auburn can hang around in that football game this year. Now, is Auburn going to beat Alabama? I'm not there yet to say that. I think the one that Auburn could steal out of these three is Missouri. And I want to say true to this. My Auburn homer wants to say true to this. The way I'm feeling right now is to say false. Because I just think where Georgia and Mizzou line up in the schedule, I don't like it. I don't like where they line up. And then Bama, that's just a tricky one, man. So I'm going to say false on this question right here.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. So Auburn plays 4 road games, if I'm correct, right? Because Kentucky is the other road game in there. And you've got that 3-game road stretch. There's a bye week in the middle of it, but you've got Georgia, Mizzou, and then Kentucky. I've always looked at that from the moment I saw the schedule and said Auburn just needs to go 1-2 here because your 2 toughest home games, in my opinion, are Oklahoma and A&M. And we've spoke a whole lot on this podcast about how important the Oklahoma game is. It's kind of a swing game. But if you win that game and then you handle business versus A&M at home, like I think you should be able to do, then out of the 4 road games, if Kentucky's the only one you win and you lose all 3 of these, you're still sitting like in a good spot. Like you're still sitting 8-4, 7-5 range. So which, you know, just trying to look at where this program is, I'm gonna take that right now, right? I think that's a reasonable expectation. So I'm gonna go false too. Auburn's not gonna be favored in all 3 of these games, and until I see Auburn kind of just put it together, like Auburn, I just haven't seen our program. We're just not in a position to where I feel like, okay, we're going to go on the road and beat a ranked team. Now, like looking at Mizzou, I think they're going to have a good season. I'm not necessarily predicting. I haven't kind of decided where I think they're going to land. I'm not saying they're gonna take like this big step back or nothing. Do they reach double digit wins again? Like I could see them going 8-4, 9-3, and Cook and Burton still putting up big numbers, but
Yep.
like other problems kind of arising. Like, and it's not that wouldn't be bad for them, but it's just everyone's just kind of expecting Mizzou to do the same thing again.
Yep.
And I'm not sold on that being the case yet. But still going on the road and getting that dub, I think that will be tough for Auburn. So right now I'm gonna go false. I think the Kentucky game is the road game Auburn can circle as the one that we can win.
Like that.
All right, on to the next one. And Blake, I'm gonna tell you, the reason I came up with this one is because of our comment section on some videos
Yeah.
and social media chatter. Okay, so some of y'all are gonna listen and look at this and go, "This is a silly question." There's a reason why I came up with this one. True or false? Auburn should worry about that recruiting Juju Lewis will upset Walker White and maybe he transfers out. Um, I'll answer this one first. This is a big false for me, but there is this chatter going on amongst the fan base that people are starting to say, well, if we get Juju, then Walker White's gone. And I just disagree with that. And I'm not saying that like something happens in the future where Walker White doesn't transfer from Auburn. You can never predict the future, but a quarterback is going to understand that the coaching staff is going to bring in a quarterback every class. Like it's very rare you just skip quarterback in your recruiting class. So Walker White comes to Auburn knowing, hey, next year Auburn's going to try to recruit a quarterback. And he probably understands they're going to try to get the best one they can. And this is how you operate now. And I know that this is going to be it's kind of hard because we haven't seen this, right? Like we haven't seen Harsin didn't recruit at this level, and Gus was a decent recruiter, but he didn't recruit at this high of a level. Like Auburn hasn't seen a staff that attacks the recruiting trail the way this one does. Like it's the top priority of this program right now is getting the best guys that we can on the roster. And that goes for every single position. And I know that we all fell in love with Walker White because of how much he loves Auburn and how good of a kid he appears to be and all those kind of things. You go get the best guys and may the best man win. And if somebody transfers out, it is what it is. That's just the way this thing works. Georgia did everything right by recruiting Brock Vandergrift to come to Georgia. He didn't win out, man, because they have other good quarterbacks on the roster. He doesn't want to wait his turn, so he transfers out to Kentucky. It is what it is. That's the way this goes. It's the way that the top programs, this way they operate, man. So it's just kind of silly to me when I see people like, well, I would rather us not get Juju because then that's going to upset Walker. Like that's such a bad take, man, and it's a loser take in my opinion.
I'm going false here as well. Look, this isn't Pee Wee football. This is Division I college football. You compete. Walker White is a competitor. He will compete for a starting job in his time at Auburn. And like Dustin said, if he doesn't win it, then hey, that's why there's the transfer portal. All right. And same goes with Juju. If you do land Juju Lewis or KJ Lacey or whoever Auburn gets in this quarterback class, you compete to win a job. And that's the life that we live in college football right now. I don't want to sit here and say, well, we got Walker White. Let's just skip out on quarterback. Let's just, maybe bring in a portal QB or something like that. No, you go get it through high school. Don't listen to SEC Mike. You go get it through high school. You bring in the best players and let the best players compete to win a job. That's how it goes. That's how all sports should be from Pee Wee up. Best player wins. No mommy and daddy stuff. No politics, anything like that. Best player wins the job.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tim the Toolman, Taylor, Brett, Connie, everybody agreeing with us in the comments. On to the next one. I like this one. Payton Thorne throws for 2,700 yards. What say you, Blake?
This is a tough one. Tough one. I believe in him, man. I'm going to say true. I'm going to say true. And the reason I'm going to say true is because I believe in what Hugh Freeze has been saying. I believe in the guys that we have on our roster on the offensive side. I believe that we're going to be cohesive this year. Everything is going to be one unit. I believe that Cam Coleman is going to be an absolute monster. I believe Perry Thompson, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Robert Lewis, Rivaldo Fairweather coming back. I believe in these cats, and I think they're going to get it done. And they're going to help Payton Thorne. I was looking at some of his numbers last year. He threw double-digit picks, 10 picks. Look, a lot of that stuff right there, I know he made the wrong reads. He wasn't picking up blitzes and everything. But, man, his receivers, they weren't good, y'all. They weren't good. And that's not me bashing an Auburn player or a former player, but we struggled at that position last year. And I think these cats can help him tremendously, especially a guy like Keandre Lambert-Smith. You bring over a guy that's played a ton of college football. He was great at Penn State. You bring a guy in like Robert Lewis. I know he played down a division in the G5, but he still put up big time numbers. He showed in the 8A game that he can make plays for Payton Thorne. I think Payton gets it done. I think he can. What did he throw last year? 1,700 yards?
Yeah, it was like 1,700 something.
Yeah, he can get to 2,700. He can get to 2,700. I don't say true.
Okay. I'm going to go false, but it's I thought about this one a lot today. Because I got him in like that 26 range. I still think we're going to be run heavy. I think that Jarquez is going to be over 1,000. I think that Jeremiah is in for a big year. I think Damar is going to have I think we're going to run the ball a lot. And I see that Daniel says that Mike G said he's got PT getting 3,000. I don't have, if I don't have him getting 27, obviously I don't have him getting 3,000. Yeah. But I will say, I think he might get 3,000 total. I don't think he's going to have 500 rushing yards like he did last year. Yeah. But I could see him getting around 2,650 passing yards, coming up just short. I got him knocking on the door of that 27. And then like 354. I see him falling right in that range. I do think he's going to get right around 3,000 yards total, though. For me, it's going to be about completion percentage and touchdown to interception ratio, really. I mean, like, you got to have more than 1,700 yards. But if PT has 2,500 yards, but he's got 23 touchdowns to 5-6 picks, and then he's at 66, 67 completion percentage, and we've ran the ball effectively, then I think Auburn's going to have a pretty nice season. So, but we will have Mike on soon, and we'll talk to him about that. And everybody in the comments, y'all are all kind of saying true. Our guy Cool Breeze, he does disagree, though. He says false. Daniel asks, what is the yardage for Heisman contention? Auburn's not going to get that this year. I don't know. We're not going to see it, buddy. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. On to the next one. Auburn needs to have a winning season, or 1 year from now, Hugh Freeze will be in a similar situation as Billy Napier on the trail. Here's kind of the reason why I came up with this question, because Billy Napier is a good recruiter. I'm not saying he's as good a recruiter as Hugh Freeze, okay? But like he did a good job his first couple of years in Gainesville. And the 6 or 7 kids they have committed are really good prospects. The problem is they only have 6 or 7 kids committed right now. They're in the list every time you see a big-time recruit. Florida's in that hunt. That's because Billy knows what he's doing. He's got a good staff at recruiting, and Florida has a good structure going on. I know they have the whole NIL situation and all that, but their last couple classes have been pretty decent is what I'm saying. But Hugh Freeze is still a better recruiter. But just follow me on this. Auburn has another losing season, right? Let's say, I'm talking 6-7 again, 5-7, something like that. That would be 2 years. There's then although me and you are going to be sitting here saying, okay, you still got to give it a little bit more time. We can't act like another losing season wouldn't be disappointment, right? Everyone is kind of expecting somewhat of a jump to finish with more wins than losses this year. So under this scenario, Auburn loses. Are all these recruits a year, sitting here in this 2026 class a year from now, will they all be saying, I don't know, man, 2 losing seasons in a row, you could be looking kind of at a hot seat. I'm going to say true, Blake. I don't think Auburn has to win 8-9 games and nothing like that. But I do think that for the sake of the 2026 class and momentum of the program, at some point you have to kind of start selling progress on the field. I do think that Auburn could kind of fall in that territory on the recruiting trail if we don't finish with more W's than L's this year. I'm going true.
I'm going true as well, and not only could you lose the momentum on the recruiting trail, you could lose the momentum on your own roster with what you've already
Mm,
brought to Auburn.
mm,
And I think it could get to where kids start hitting the portal, things like that. I gotta say true because if you have another losing season, especially after all the hype that has been kind of circulating Auburn the past couple weeks. And I'm not talking about like hype as in Auburn winning 10 games. I'm just talking about these national media guys. They're getting on their podcast and they're saying, hey, buy stock in Auburn, buy stock in Auburn. Auburn's going to turn this thing around. Hugh Freeze has got it going on the right track. And then all of a sudden you come out and you lay a dud and you go 6-6 and you lose another bowl game. That's not good. It's not good. I don't think that's the route that we want to take this year. Now, if Auburn goes 7-5, you go in, you win a bowl game, you go 8-5. I think that's positive. I think these guys come back, they stick on the roster,
mm.
and you have another great year of recruiting. So definitely true here because what they got going down there in Gainesville right now is not what you want to see.
Yeah, that's tough, man. It's tough for sure. Let's get to a couple of these questions before we continue on down our list here. Ephesians 2:8-9 says, for Auburn to have another losing season this year, almost every addition to this roster would have to be a bust. No chance this happens. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, brother. Auburn's had back-to-back losing seasons, so to say there's no chance that they can have another one, mm, I'm not there with you. I'm not predicting Auburn to have a losing season, but saying that there's no chance, there's definitely a chance. A couple injuries up front on the defensive line. Percy Lewis maybe goes down. A Connor Lew goes down. What happens if PT goes down? We don't know anything about Hank Brown or Holden Garner or Walker White. Like there's definitely a scenario, man, where Auburn has another losing season. But I do like your optimism, and I'm not predicting Auburn to have a losing season.
I don't think Auburn has a losing season, but if you come out in one of those first four games, particularly Cal or Arkansas, and you drop one of those, watch out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it happens. I'm just saying watch out that things could get really hairy. So we just gotta pump the brakes real quick.
Yeah, for sure. Brett says, what does it look like? Injuries, and we play a lot of freshmen. Thorne goes down. Absolutely. I mean, we are young. Like, there's a lot of guys this year that are going to have to play that are super young. So there's going to be growing pains. Like, Cam Coleman's going to make mistakes sometimes because it's going to be his first time in those big time moments. He's a freak. He's a stud. All
Yeah.
those things. Perry Thompson, all those things. They were still playing high school ball last year, right? Like, this is a different level. So when we get into the heat of the fire, man, these young guys, they're going to make some mistakes, and we're just going to have to kind of learn to live with that. And again, I like what we did on the D line. I think we went out and got the best we could on the portal, out of the portal, but we're a couple injuries away, especially in the interior of that D line, from having some serious questions. So yeah, that's kind of the route that it would look like. And then Steven asked, thoughts on Zion Grady going to Ohio State? My thoughts, Steven, are Ohio State is recruiting, brother. They're recruiting really, really well. And Auburn is too. And I just got to kind of say, man, it was funny to watch the reaction, not just from Auburn fans, all the kind of college football fans that are starting to realize that like Alabama is still going to recruit. Like, yeah, like the Hussey Harson. I tried to tell y'all, bro. I tried to tell y'all, like, it's funny. Ha 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 ha. All right. And then like Ohio State, same thing. So I said because both those programs had really big weekends. They had big weekends. They got some commitments out of them. And Ohio State's got a hell of a staff up there. The recruiting class that they're putting together right now is awesome. But Auburn's doing our thing too. We didn't really have anybody on campus this weekend. It was a chill weekend for Auburn. Come holler at us at Big Cat. We'll be back in the recruiting news. Just wait till the end of July. We'll be back in the news as well. Zion will be back on campus, I'm sure, at some time throughout the season. And we know that Hugh Freeze is relentless on the trail. If Zion Grady is somebody that Auburn wants, then Auburn's going to do everything they can to get him in the fold. I would kind of finish this one off, Blake, and then get your thoughts. Maybe there are some guys out there that Auburn kind of likes better at the edge position that they feel like they have a shot with.
Maybe so. That one could be the Jared Smith kid. Look, with Zion Grady, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say, yeah, he committed. Ohio State. They're dropping bags, man. They're doing it. All right. They got you. You heard Ryan Day and what he said. Like, hey, our NIL's got to step up. Like, we have to compete. We can't keep losing to Michigan. They're trying to nip it in the bud immediately, and they want to come down south and get the best guys. So they got offered, committed right now. They're going for Zion Grady. That's cool. I think a lot of Auburn fans just need to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, just exhale and relax. It's going to be okay. We're hot on the recruiting trail. We're going to get guys to Big Cat. We will have names pop. Caleb Cunningham, I know everybody's going crazy about that. He goes to Alabama. He says, oh, they're my new number one. He said that everybody is his number one. All right. He's playing the game, he's playing the recruiting game, and he's playing it well. All right. That's just how these kids are now. Like, everybody's like, oh, Malik Autry's going to flip. Malik Autry's going to flip. Folks, they're all playing a game. They're into social media. They know that they can draw up a reaction. They know that whatever they post can get a lot of reactions and a lot of hype around it, and can get them trending and things like that. That's the game that they play. That's what they want. They're high schoolers. These kids still have another year of high school left. 16, 17 years old. So it's all a game. We gotta be patient. I know somebody told me, there's a lot of visit high going around.
Yeah.
Like, these kids, they take a visit. Oh, I'm gonna commit. I loved it here. Kind of like Alvin Henderson. He went up to Penn State and he was like, oh, I love it. I love it. And then what happened? He was like, oh, I'm committing to Penn State. 2 months later, hey, I'm flipping to Auburn. I want to stay home. Visit high.
Yeah, for sure. Connie says, in hindsight, I didn't like no recruits on campus this weekend. Just wait till Big Cat, Connie. Wait till Big Cat, and then they're all going to be there. And you know that Hugh Freeze is going to make a whole lot of noise, and they got a plan. It's all going to be okay. All right, let's get back to the true or false questions. On to the next one. True or false? Keandre Lambert-Smith has 600 plus yards. Blake, I'll go first on this one. I'm going to say false by 50 yards. I think Cam Coleman leads the team in receiving yards this year. I think he's going to kind of fall somewhere in that 700 to 800 yard range. And then I think that Lambert-Smith and Robert Lewis are going to kind of be in that 400 to 600 yards range. And Perry will probably chip in with around 400 to 500 too, if I had to guess. I think it's going to be pretty spaced out, man. I do. But I think Cam Coleman's just your go-to guy. And I think that he's going to be the guy that gets over 700. Maybe he touches 800. And then Rivaldo is going to get hits at the tight end position. So I think it's going to kind of be spread around. I'm going to go 550 for Keandre Lambert-Smith, and I'll throw my touchdowns in here. I think he has 5 touchdowns. I need him to make big catches, Blake. I need him to make big catches on third down like he did at Penn State.
Yes, he's a chain mover, and I'm going to go false as well. I set it at 600 just because of I think what did he get last year at Penn State? 800 yards receiving.
I'll check it real quick.
But it's going to be spread out, and I agree with you. I think Cam Coleman's the guy. I think Cam Coleman's got to come in, and he's got to go north of look, Cam's got to have 50 balls, 60 balls this year. You got to put up big time numbers. I know he's a freshman. I get that he's young, but he's got to come in and take over. He's a freshman on paper, but on the field he's not. And so I just think, Rivaldo right there at tight end, he's coming back. You bring in a guy like Robert Lewis. You still got Camden Brown. Not many people are throwing him out there. Bryce Cain's probably going to get on the field a little bit. Perry, he's going to get on the field. I don't know about y'all, man, but Perry Thompson's making waves. Like, Perry Thompson, that dude, he's a stud. So
it's a big boy, man.
Yeah, I'm going to go false here. I think he gets slightly under 600. But I do think he's a heck of a player. I think this was one of the bigger pickups for Auburn in the transfer portal, and really in the conference for real. I think Auburn needed this pickup, and Hugh Freeze went and got him.
Yeah, we've talked about this at a couple of the other positions too. It's about bridging the gap. you brought in this awesome freshman class, but you go out and get guys like Robert Lewis and Lambert Smith that
Yep.
can kind of give you some time. Some guys that have already played high level football, especially Lambert Smith, obviously playing in the Big Ten. So it was 673, Blake. He had 600. This is according to ESPN. 673 yards last year, 4 touchdowns. He had a long of 72. He averaged 12.7 a reception. And when we did the film breakdown with the members, there was so many of them on third down. That's what really kind of stood out to me. So we need that guy, man. We need that guy. We know how much we've struggled on third down. If we can have that guy that we can go to, and we know that he's going to be able to catch the ball and move the chains, that'd be big time for us. And yeah, I just see it being really spread out, man. All right, on to the next one. True or false? And boy, Blake, your take on this when it came to basketball sure did rile up the fan base. The SEC championship will be irrelevant in 5 years. And the reason I asked this question is because of the expanded playoff and because of the way conference realignment going and everything like that. What are your thoughts on this one, Blake?
The reason why maybe it doesn't become irrelevant is because if you win your conference championship, you're probably going to get that bye, right? So I think that's kind of a way that they keep it relevant. So you get that first round bye, and you're not left out of that top 4. So maybe in 5 years it still is hanging around. But I think if 2 teams, this is just my take of where we're at in college football today. I think if 2 teams get there, let's just say Auburn, let's say in 2 years, Auburn gets to the SEC championship game. Say Auburn's ranked 4th in the country and they're playing Georgia, who's ranked 1st in the country. I think what we were talking about the other day is these kids sitting out of these bowl games. You might start seeing people say, hey, look, we're already in the playoffs. The SEC championship game, it don't matter. Like, we don't need to run somebody out there and get hurt. So let's sit this guy. And look, that's not what I'm about, but I'm saying that, like, it could happen like that, where you might sit a guy that could be, rehabbing from an injury and he's kind of on the line, he's questionable, and you just might have these guys sit out here and there, and it just, hey, we don't really care about the SEC championship. We're already in the playoffs. We'll do what we got to do. Let's just get in. It's 14 teams. This year it's 12, moving up to 14. That's kind of how I feel about it, because at the end of the day, how do you think 2011 LSU feels? Do you think they go around and they say, hey, man, we're SEC champs? Like, yeah. No, dog, you lost. Like, you lost the one that mattered. When you rematched, you lost. Right. All right. So you can be that SEC champion all you want, but you lost the one that mattered. So you won all the ones before that, but you lost when it mattered. So I think that's kind of where we're losing the whole conference championship weekend. We're losing the steam off of it, because I do think that it's not going to really matter here in a couple of years. Maybe they come in and take it away at one point. I don't know. Like, this is a tricky one. It really is, Dustin. And I think it's a great question from you, just because college football is changing so much, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. It's just, I really do. I think we're going to see some kids that are maybe teetering that, do I play? Do I not play? Well, this game don't really matter, whatever. So I'm going to say true. The SEC championship will be irrelevant in 5 years. I'm going to go true just because of that. I think some people might just stick their nose up at it and say, hey, look, we're in the playoffs. Let's not risk anything. We're locked in.
Yeah, dude, this is really it's really wild, This is a really wild place to be in. Just kind of thinking back to when we were growing up, and the whole goal is, man, if I get to Atlanta, then everything else will happen that I want to happen. But I just got to get to Atlanta. And there's a whole nother question that we could do a whole episode on, is what does this do to the Iron Bowl? Let's say that, because here, look, let me answer this question before we get into that. I'm going to go true. It's true to me because, like you said, man, let's say I'm sitting there and I know that no matter what, like I'm 12-0, I'm 11-1, and we're in the show.
Mhm.
Well, if I still this doesn't count as the playoffs.
Yep.
No, we're not playing. No, you're gonna see the scout team, bro. You're gonna see the scout team. It's gonna look like a spring game out here. You're gonna see the most vanilla plays on offense. I'm not showing you anything because we're trying to win the championship.
Yep.
And like it's a little bit different in basketball because one, you're still kind of like fighting for seeding a lot of times and stuff like that. But the main thing is it's not a contact sport. Like I know you can get hurt in basketball, but like everyone knows obviously why kids sit out bowl games, right? Because like they could have a serious injury that could affect and get dropped. Like it's obviously a very, you have a high chance of getting hurt in a football game. So if you're in that scenario, bro, yeah, I'm not the hell with I don't like it just as a fan. I'm if Auburn was 11-1 playing LSU 11-1 in the SEC title, and I know that no matter what, Auburn's going to make the playoff. Like, I guess seeding and all that, but here's what I would want, Blake. This is my whole point with this. This is why it's irrelevant to me. Because you know who I would want to be in that scenario? I'd want to be the 10-2 Georgia team that ain't got to play in that game. And I'll just see y'all in the playoffs. That's my whole thing with it. It just seems to me like an extra game that could get in the way. Because we know that there are going to be years where 3 or 4 SEC teams get in. Which one would you rather be? Would you rather be the 1 or 2 that has to go play this SEC title? And I'm sure there will be times, like every year, the scenario will be a little bit different. I'm sure there will be times where, like, all right, if we do win this game, we can get a bye and all that kind of stuff. But, like, sometimes it might not play out that way. I think it's going to lose a lot of steam, man. I think it's going to lose a lot of steam.
I'll throw out it just happened this past year. All right. You look at Georgia. They were the number 1 team in the country. They come in, they play Alabama and Atlanta. If Georgia, just say we're in a 14-team playoff, you had Brock Bowers beat up, you had Ladd McConkey beat up. They were already behind the 8 ball with injuries. Do you think you think Kirby's going to trot out Carson Beck out there and he's saying, hey, look, man, like we're behind the 8 ball. We really don't have to win this game. Do I really want to send my guy out there to get beat and bruised? And we're probably not, going to win here. We're already in the playoffs. I'm just saying it could happen like that. I don't think Kirby's that kind of coach, but things like that could come up. And that's why I think it's irrelevant.
Yeah. So I'm going to get on to this one now, Brett. Brett says there's a scenario where Auburn could play Bama in the Iron Bowl, in the SEC title game, and in the playoff. Yes, and me and Blake actually talked about this like a week ago, and just texting back and forth because I think it's bad. Like I think that's bad for the rivalry. I'm not saying it's going to kill the rivalry and all that kind of stuff, right? Like the Iron Bowl is always going to be the Iron Bowl, and I'm always going to be fired up whenever we play Bama. But like we know what the deal's been for the longest time, right? It's we better beat them on this day because if we don't, then we got to hear about it for a whole freaking year. And that's why there's so much anxiety and angst built into that day.
Yep.
That's why you wake up with the butterflies in your stomach and it means so much because here's my one opportunity to make this happen. That's why when the kick 6 happens, it's okay. See y'all next year, baby. I got a whole year to bask in this.
Yep.
And from their perspective, you get us the way you got us this year, you got a whole year to bask in it. Ha. You get us next year. But there's a scenario, like Brett says here, we could be playing Bama last game of the season where we already know we play them the next week. And I think that's bad for the health of the rivalry. I do. I don't know how bad it is. I don't know how to scale that, but I just don't think that's positive. I don't think that's a good thing, man.
How bad was it in 2017 when we had to play Georgia, Alabama? Oh, guess what? Next week you got to play Georgia again.
Right.
Like,
it took all the luster out of that ass kicking we gave them.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, well, here's round 2. Carry on's hurt. We're in trouble, And look, I know if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, but it does drown things out a little bit that I could see the Red River 2 or 3 times in a year. I could see the game in Michigan and Ohio State 2 to 3 times a year. It's just not fun. The beauty of college football was that strive for perfection and you getting that one shot at your arch rival, and you knocking them off, and then you go into the BCS and all that, and hopefully you don't have a loss on your resume. Some teams did go undefeated in the BCS and still not get to play for a national championship, but it was crazy. But you
Pretty
know,
wild.
yeah, it's you're losing that flame of going for perfection in college football, and it's now, well, we could play 2 3 times, and it's crazy to me. I don't really like where it's headed, but eh,
Yeah,
no
well, like
stopping
so,
it.
say a scenario like this. Say we play Bama 3 times, okay? Say there's both teams are just on fire that year, got the 2 best teams in the country. We meet them regular season, meet in the SEC title, meet them again in the playoffs. Let's say Auburn wins the first 2 and then loses the last one. You know
Yep.
how goofy that's gonna feel to have beat Bama twice in the same season, and they still walk away with the ultimate bragging rights because they won the last one? It feels a lot like NFL rivalries at that point. Like, as a Bucks fan, I hate the Saints and the Falcons, but it doesn't feel like college because I could play you 2 times in a year and dude, perfect example. The year the Bucks won the Super Bowl in 2020. Saints beat us both times in the regular season. Both times. We beat them in the divisional round of the playoffs. So I don't give a damn
Yeah.
about them first 2 times. Whatever. Got you when it counted. So I don't think that's I just don't think that's healthy, man. It kind of takes away from the once a year nature of the big games. Now,
No doubt.
like, would it be super, super hype? Auburn, Alabama have a tight Iron Bowl. One team barely comes out on top, and then you meet them a couple games later in the semifinal or maybe the national championship.
Yeah.
Of course, that would be fever pitch to the roof. Like, there are scenarios where it could be cool, but just overall, man, it's I'm with Blake. We're heading to this spot to where, and now you've got these rumors about teams getting ready to leave the ACC. And listen, we keep going down this road, we're going to have divisions again in the conference because you're going to have 30 teams in the conference. You're going to have to divvy it up some kind of way. It's becoming wild, man. We'll get in here and check some of those comments before we get out of here. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not. The stadium thing, I did want to touch on the stadium thing. We did promise we would talk about it. Look, we do have the channel, the War Report Gaming channel. So obviously, this being an EA list, we are going to do a full reaction to the list later on this week, give our overall top 10s. So I'll kind of save my overall opinions on their list, but I will give you my Auburn perspective here. Auburn being at 14, wasn't that where we came in, 14?
Yeah.
Come on now. Come on now. And I would be okay with it if they set a criteria. And for those of you that don't have social media or have no interest in playing the video game, EA College Football 25 is coming out in about a month. They released some stuff today. Their top 25 list of the loudest, what are going to be the loudest stadiums, the toughest places to play on the game. Now, to their credit, and if you know how video games work, as the season goes, they can change. They'll do updates and all that. But the list definitely raised a lot of eyebrows because, one, they had Texas A&M at number 1, which is pretty freaking crazy because we all know as Auburn fans here that it took a while for us to even lose there. But Auburn at 14, and if you go look at, I believe it was On3's post where they posted the list, or maybe it was the actual EA post where they posted their top 10. But one of the ones I saw, one of the top comments underneath was a Bama account saying, Auburn's top 5. What are y'all doing here? So I know a lot of y'all were asking at the beginning of the show. Yeah, it's crap, dude. It's absolute crap. And again, if they had like a criteria where they said it's just the toughest place to come in and win, and Auburn's been letting teams come in there and win, so y'all are 14th, that would make sense to me. But you had A&M number 1, so then you kind of cancel out that theory. So I don't really know what you're looking at. Auburn's a top 5 venue, man. Auburn is a
Yeah.
top 5. It's a top 5 toughest place to play in the country. Just look at our performances versus Alabama at home over the last 10 years. Most of our performance versus Alabama on the road. Like, we all know how Alabama has recruited at a level above Auburn, but for some reason, when they come to our stadium, that talent gap closes significantly. Why is that? It's because our stadium, our fan base, we can do that, man. Auburn's been in a lot of ball games they really had no business being in these last couple of years because of Auburn. So very, very, very bad list from EA there. Having Auburn at 14, having Tennessee outside the top 10, criminal. Absolutely criminal. Neyland Stadium is a top 5 atmosphere in college football. Jordan-Hare Stadium is a top 5 atmosphere in college football. They missed the boat bad, dude.
I think a lot of people get mixed up in this with product on the field.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people let that go right over their head with, you're telling me that Bryant-Denny Stadium is a top 5 venue in America. No, you're saying that because of the product on the field, and they win a lot of games due to the fact that they're so much better. They have so much better talent on their roster than the other team. It's not an intimidating place to play. It's more of a business setting to me. All right. That's the same way with like Doak Campbell, Florida State. That's not an intimidating place to play, in my opinion. It's just not. And what is it? Wisconsin. It's not an intimidating place to play. Yeah. All right. So you've got one of my buddies just asked me, well, how does it not play to the product on the field? I'll tell you how it doesn't play. All right. Auburn last year, 6-5, had no business being on the field with the Alabama Crimson Tide. You come into Jordan-Hare and it's a ball game. You should have won that game. Why? Because of the atmosphere and one of the toughest places to play in America. You had no business roster-wise, product on the field. You had no business staying with Alabama. You had just got beat by 3 TDs by New Mexico State the week before, and somehow you should have won that game. Tell me it has everything to do with Jordan-Hare and the Auburn fans that showed up that day to give Auburn the juice to be even in that game. It has nothing to do with product on the field, and I think that's where a lot of people get caught up, is they say, what have you done for me lately? And well, they're winning right now, so let's bump them up. And honestly, to have Kyle Field at number 1 is a joke.
Bad.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Let's all be honest. I did a member pod on it. Let's be honest. All right, Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is by far the toughest place to play. It is the toughest atmosphere you will ever walk into. I've been to a lot of these stadiums. All right. It's just like I talk with my friends and they say, hey, look, what was Autzen Stadium like? Hey, it's loud. All right. It's loud. And the way they built the stadium and created it, yeah. Is it louder than Jordan-Hare? No. You want to know why? Because I've been to both. It's not louder than Jordan-Hare. The atmosphere doesn't even come close. Do I have Autzen in my top 10? Yes. Neyland Stadium. How are you at 13?
It's a joke.
How are you at 13? I've been to Neyland. Come on, man. Come on. This list was made up by a bunch of people who have never been to these stadiums.
Apparently.
You've never been. You're just going off of hearsay. You're going off of what somebody else told you who's probably a homer that says, hey, that stadium, man, I love those. They're so loud. God, it's so loud there. It's not. Like Neyland Stadium should be in the top, in my opinion, they're top 5.
Yep.
I also had a buddy today tell me, well, the Swamp just isn't what it used to be. That's why it's low on my list. What are you talking about? It isn't what it used to be. Ask Cam Rising in the Utah Utes just 2 seasons ago, who come in there with national title hopes, first game of the season, and they lose. Goal line stand. Florida picks the ball off in the end zone. You want to know why Florida won that game? They weren't good that year. You want to know why Florida won that game? Because of the crowd. Ben Hill, all right? Electric atmosphere. Loud. The Swamp gets nasty. Ask Bo Nix how nasty it gets. All right, crumbled. That 2019 Auburn team flat out crumbled that day in Gainesville. So I think a lot of people look at, oh, well, they're winning. Let's boost them up. That's just such a ridiculously place to play. It's so hard to win there. Yeah, it is hard to win there because they're going to the. This is like the Ohio State Buckeyes. Yeah, it's been hard to win there because they're winning all the time. It's not because of their stadium. It's because they had C.J. Stroud. It's because they've had all these generational quarterbacks come through there. Like, they've had all these Justin Fields, all this talent come through there. Wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., all this. It ain't got nothing to do with their stadium. It's got everything to do with their roster was just better than Illinois and Indiana. So that's where I sit at, man. I think it's a bad list. I think you need to, instead of having a group of people that have never been to stadiums and have really don't watch college football a whole lot. That's where I think it comes from. I think these guys are gamers and they don't really watch a whole lot of college football, and they just throw a list together and say, hey, let's get some interaction on Twitter. Let's get this thing talked about. Let's push this graphic. That's where we're at.
Well, when you put Doak Campbell in front of Ben Hill, Otson, Nealon, Jordan-Hare, you're going to get some interaction. Because that's just a swing and a miss. That's just a swing and a miss, dude. I've been to games at Florida State. They can get loud if everything's right. I'm not saying they have a bad fan base, but not a whole lot of teams are going to sell out the building for a 3-win team like Auburn did that night versus A&M and put together that kind of atmosphere. That kind of atmosphere, that kind of fan base, that's a top 5. And I see Brad was asking, he said Tennessee is not in the top 10. Yeah, dude, they did not have Tennessee in the top 10. They have Florida State ahead of Tennessee. So,
crazy.
Like I said, me and Blake, we look out a couple days over on the Warport Gaming channel. We will have our top 10 list ready, and we will kind of talk more about that. So, good show tonight, man. Appreciate all y'all for joining us. Hit that thumbs up button on the way out. We continue our journey to the road to 2,000 subs. We're right there, man. So, we had a good week in subs this week. Y'all continue doing that for us. Share this thing out on social media. Blake, I'm done. You got anything before we get out of here?
I just wanted to say one thing. Not really related to Auburn, but I'll close it out on this. Coach Slosh at Texas A&M went over to Texas baseball today after losing the national championship to the Tennessee Volunteers. And this is why I take up for kids in college football today when it comes to the transfer portal and things like that. We had a head coach in our conference sit down at a podium in a post-game presser. Simple media guy just asking a question, said, hey, what are the rumors? Are you going to Texas? He looks at him and tries to make a jackass out of this media member.
Right.
And says, that's mighty selfish of you to ask me that question. All right. I took the Texas A&M job as my forever job to never take another job. You're lying. You're a liar. All right. Liar. That is why you can't get mad at a kid for hitting the transfer portal. Because if you can sit there and lie, blatantly lie, wrong. It's wrong. Bro, you have a ton of kids in that locker room right now that are crying their eyes out. And you sit up there and you lie because you know in your heart that you're going to the University of Texas. You're taking that job. Be honest. If you can't be honest to them media guys, you can't be honest to your team. You got to just pour it out there. And if you don't want to be honest, say, hey, look, next question or no comment. And then go tell your team what you're doing. But don't sit there and lie. And this goes for every coach. Be honest, man. Be honest. Do not do what he did. Look, what he did is he upped his pay. Can't hate on the guy for that. But it's how he went about it. It's how he went about it. The whole process of sitting there and you trying to make this media guy who's been there every step of the way, who's been at your games all year, who was probably a Texas A&M credentialed reporter. Say, hey, man, what's the deal here? And then you look at him and you try to make a clown out of him when you're the clown. handle it better, man. Schloss is what, in his 60s. I would expect better. I would expect better out of somebody who's been doing it that long. And I guess he's just trying to coach for every team in the state of Texas, because he did TCU the same way. He left them high and dry after taking them to Omaha, went to Texas A&M, takes them to the national championship series, and then leaves them and goes to the University of Texas. Figure it out, man. What part of Texas do you want to live in? And this is why I back kids who enter the transfer portal, and because they can get shit on. Coaches do it left and right. So, you can't hate the kids. So that's where I'm at, Dustin.
Yeah, I was texting my dad and brother about this, and that's exactly what I said, dude. I said, well, these are the same coaches that will say all this stuff about how much they hate the portal, and they turn around and act like this.
Yep.
And you just don't have any. You don't have a leg to stand on when you do that. And then, like you said, with a media member, the guy obviously has a good source because you ended up doing what he asked.
Yeah.
He's doing his job. And for you to act like he's just coming out of left field with some super inappropriate question when you're leaving, dude, pretty wild stuff. Good show tonight, man. We love each and every one of y'all. We'll see you on the next one. We're out. War Damn Eagle, baby.
War Damn.